Welcome to SDG Live. We're here at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And the conversation here in Davos is about creating a shared future in a fractured world. I'm really grateful as a reporter for Devex covering global health and international development that the UN Foundation, together with GSMA, is elevating the conversation around the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Because if we're going to achieve these goals, we have to consider inclusion, put it front and center. And I am joined by two people here who are really focused on SDG 5. We're going to talk about girls and women, but you're also conveners, connectors, and leaders in the media space, and we're going to talk about the role of media in the SDGs. So to my far right is Shelley Zalis. She is the founder of the Girls Lounge, which is just down the street, putting on some amazing programming, and CEO of the Female Quotient. So looking forward to hearing more about your work.
And it's an equality lounge here at Davos.
Equality Lounge, that's right. And I actually want to talk about the framing here. When we first met, it was the Girls Lounge at South by Southwest. Here it's the Equality Lounge, so we'll talk about that. And just next to me is Laura Brounstein. She is the Director of Editorial and Business Development for Cosmopolitan and 17. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. This is great.
So I want to start with this question. There was a presence here at Davos last year. I believe it was the Girls Lounge last year, right?
It's the Female Quotient. We called it the place for the 18%.
The place for the 18% last year. This year it's the Equality Lounge.
This year we call it the Equality Lounge.
The first year it was the Girls Lounge.
Okay,
It
interesting.
was never the girls. It was always the Female Quotient.
Okay.
And it was always the place for the 18%.
So tell us more about it. And why is this year a different moment? I mean, we've had Me Too. I mean, there's a huge conversation around the issues that you've been focusing on. Why is this year different?
Well, I think, first of all, this year it's the place for the 21%. So we are seeing progress, which is really quite amazing. And kudos to the World Economic Forum having 7 female co-chairs for the first time in history. So I think that that's how we make progress, is by starting and taking next steps towards change. The world isn't going to change overnight, but it is about step change and being conscious of our choices. And I think that that's, really what we're doing right now. And this year, we called it the Equality Lounge because global goal number 5, gender equality, we cannot create equality if men and women do not work together. Gender equality is not a female issue, it's a social and economic issue. And so it's really important, as the headlines of this conference, to be united. A company alone can have power. Collectively, we have impact. Collectively, together, united, we impact change. And so we just want to make the point that solutions for change involve all of us. Every leader, regardless of gender, race, age, religion, is responsible for creating the changes that we all want to see in today's world.
And I know the United Nations, is often pointing out that it's not just about achieving goal number 5, but how goal number 5 drives every other goal. Well, and goal 17 is about partnerships, and I think that drives all of this as well. So can you both expand on your work in the partnerships realm?
Well, Shelley is a natural connector, and one of her many gifts, she brings people together for conversations, and I think that is one of the things that's essential to meeting the global goals, is bringing people together, pooling resources, sharing best practices, and hearing other people's points of views to move forward. And, to your point earlier, there was an incredible panel Shelley had in the lounge this morning with Meredith Levine from the New York Times and David Wenig from eBay, the CEO of eBay. And he said, yes, from a humanitarian point of view, I want gender equality at eBay, but I do it because my job is to make my company better. And my company is better if I have a more equal gender balance. And it was so well said, and somebody could hear that and go back and say that at their company now.
Yeah, and I think that partnership also is unity, solidarity, standards, so that we can all hold ourselves accountable. And what UN is really doing is bringing us all together. These global goals, they're not mine, they're not yours, they're ours collectively. And if we truly want to make the world a better place, a company that's just living in a bubble, doing their own thing, that's very nice, but they won't impact world change in that regard. So I really do appreciate the work of UN and UN Women, where we spend a lot of time, with UN Women, bringing us together, sharing best practice, not recreating the wheel, doing the same thing differently. We can divide and conquer together, and that's how we will perpetuate change in a much more efficient way. in a much more rapid way and in a much more accountable way.
I want to ask you about how we get beyond the status quo. So in preparing for this conversation, I was looking over this World Economic Forum report stating that if we continue with the status quo in terms of girls and women and gender parity, it will take 170 years to achieve gender parity. Obviously, that's not going to cut it when we're working toward 2030. So how can we go beyond the status quo? That's essentially what I think a lot of the conversations you're convening are looking at. So what are some examples of getting beyond the status quo?
My nickname is Chief Troublemaker, and so I'm just going to say you got to break the rules and break the pattern. I mean, status quo in and of itself is exactly what it is, status quo. So if we keep admiring the problems, if we keep talking about the problems, I can tell you that it's not going to fix itself. And, these are legacy issues. This is not a new issue. This has been an issue for a really long time. It's not a new issue. So I think we have to just pause, stop the bleeding, and start today moving forward. And I think that it will require peaceful disruption, new rules, not just using the old rules, because those clearly don't work. Yeah. So what are the new rules for today? And if we want to be better, it's not unconscious bias. Let's stop using that as an excuse. I mean, that's an excuse card. Let's make the decision. Let's make the choice to be better. And if we want to be better, then put more diversity in the equation. We always say when you put women in any equation, the equation gets better. And that's what all the reports show. Diversity is not a nice to have, it's good for business. So why are we all going backwards? And so I think it's time to put more women in the equation by choice, by design, and not just one. I think there's going to be a flipping point. I think when we have, and let's not wait until 50-50. That's a step change. Let's get to 30. How about going to 30? I think if we can reach 30%, we will see a flipping point.
That's the tipping point.
I think it's a
when
flipping point.
When there's 3 women at the table, in every study, like you're so correct, every study shows that's why in Britain they have the 30% for Change program, which is all about all corporate boards are now required to have 30% women because they have limited board terms. And when there's 1 woman at the table, she feels like she needs to sort of maybe act like a guy. When there's 2 women at the table, they're sort of just like cornered off or played against each other, which we don't like. But when there's 3 women at the table, the conversation changes.
Well, and there's clear examples of that. I mean, so I think it's a flipping point when you put at least 30% of a sphere of influence. That's when we'll see transformation of culture, because it just changes when you have enough of something. And Barry Salzberg, the former CEO of Deloitte, we were both keynoting together at a conference, and his conversation was, 7 steps to success, and mine was bring emotion to the boardroom. And he pulled me aside after and he said, you'll be very proud to hear that we appointed our first female CEO in the United States. And I said to him, well, was that to fill a quota or because you want a more nurturing, empathetic, collaborative work environment? And he told me a story, real story. He said, let me tell you, he said, we had 24 people on our board, 3 were women, 3 out of 24. He said, but those 3 women never spoke up. I said, what'd you do? He said, I got rid of 5 guys, put 5 more women. It's now 8 out of 24. I said, what happened? He said, the table turned. We stopped just talking about the what. We started talking about the why and the how. It was more conversational. And the original 3 women were now the most vocal because they felt comfortable.
They had the power to be
and
senior.
They had this power that they always had. But it was just the table turned, the culture turned because there was more. The minority started acting and feeling like the majority as a result.
I want to ask you, I'd love to hear an anecdote from your time in a developing country context, because I was really struck by this yesterday. I was hearing from the head of Oxfam who talked about the opportunities she has had versus the opportunities her friend in her village has had because she married young, and that's not something that happens to most young men. So how are you kind of sharing lessons across borders in terms of, we're talking a lot about a US context in a developing country context?
You know, I say that, you know, I have a mentorship in the moment program. I don't think you need a mentor forever. I think you get sound bites of nuggets of knowledge and mentorship along the way, and everyone needs different kinds of advice.
She literally
especially
gave me mentoring tips as we walked over here. Like, speaking of along the way, like literally I had mentoring in a moment as we walked the block over
But we give
here.
it to each other, and it doesn't matter where it comes from. You know, listen, and, you know, it's not just about, you know, the wisdom pushed down. I also learn, you know, from the digital natives and the millennials, and I think it's knowledge shared all around. So I was invited to the World Economic Forum in Africa, which was in Rwanda. And I decided while I was there, I would go visit some of the orphanages. And I went to visit schools, and of course, I was mentoring. I mentored 500 girls in a day. And I say a minute of mentorship led to a lifetime of change for me and for them. And these little girls were so inspiring, and I talked about the importance of confidence, and confidence is beautiful.
That goes across borders.
Yeah.
A smile and confidence is borderless. I mean, it really is true. And I talked about owning your voice and finding your strength, and that you are as important as the boys and different. You bring a different strength, so don't conform, transform. So even at a young age, and I had young girls from 12 to 18. I was so inspired by them, I invited them to the World Economic Forum. I took 10 girls with me to the World Economic Forum.
That's amazing.
And we had 150 women that we were connecting, and I put each girl at a different table. And they came an hour in advance, and I said to them, okay, I'm going to give you each a question. Confidence is, my responsibility is, and I said, I want you each to complete that sentence. And throughout the day, you stand up and say it. When I say the word confidence, you all get up and say your sentence. And I said, and then together, when I say confidence, say, confidence is beautiful. I chose 3 of them to speak, but all of them collectively to say confidence is beautiful. The day begins, and this little girl named Esther, 14 years old, who I did not choose because she was so shy when I was making the selection, she gets up in front of 150 of the most powerful women in Africa, and she says, ladies, I want to ask you a question. Where does your confidence come from? Throughout the day, Esther, let me tell you. Esther, let me tell you. Esther, mentorship in the moment.
Oh, I have chills.
I love that.
At the end of the day, a little girl named Amen got up and closed the entire day. And she said to the ladies, ladies, you changed my life forever. You made me realize that my voice was more important than the boys, that it is my responsibility to give back to every girl in the orphanage that cannot be here today what you've done for me. And she says, and I will never forget this day for the rest of my life. And now I need to help others. From that day, they walk to a little internet cafe. They send me messages. They sleep in the Confidence is Beautiful t-shirts. And I'm receiving a Matrix Award for Communications in New York. And they asked me who I'd like to give the award to me. Do you know who I chose? Amen. Amen will be flying from Rwanda to present the award because she impacted me. You educate a girl, you educate a family. And that moment will last for a lifetime, and it makes me realize that it is my responsibility, and I raise my hand high to continue to do this work around the world, to inspire, to educate, to be inspired, and to give back with generosity.
Thank you for sharing that story. Wow. I don't
never
think
heard that story before.
That's an amazing story. I don't think we have time to get to this question. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, you want to take up so much time.
Don't,
No,
please.
I'm going to end with this then. If you can fit in 2 minutes, I know we have to send you off down the promenade, but one last question. I mean, building on the power of narrative, I really want to get to the role of media in achieving the SDGs. What is the role of media? And we'll close with that, unless you have any other calls to action after the fact.
Hopefully the role that media can play is, you know, change happens, I think, through storytelling. That story that Shelley just told, we're all like drying our eyes, and everybody is going to process the idea of reaching out and that kind of compassion in a different way. And so I think when media succeeds, We are telling the stories that people will unite and come together around ideas and discuss ideas. And I think social media plays a role with that also. 17 Magazine does an annual project with Instagram. We created something called Body Confidence Day. And it's a global program, and it's #PerfectlyMe because of all of the issues that girls have around kind of feeling confident at a certain moment in their development. And social media can play a negative role with that, and Instagram wanted to take a positive point of view. So 17 and Instagram came together to do this, and the idea is to #PerfectlyMe with what makes you feel perfectly you. So basically, like I would put a picture of myself talking to people at the girls' lounge with like, I feel #PerfectlyMe when I'm talking to smart women. So this year, we partnered with the UN Foundation's Girl Up. And we encouraged them, we asked them if they would do perfectly meetups. And we created a toolkit with advisors who are psychiatrists and people who really know things of how the girls could have conversations without an adult there. Like they could just print out the toolkit and have a conversation around confidence, how they can make each other feel more confident, how they can be there for each other. The posts, the Instagram posts we see that day with the #PerfectlyMe are just, you just start crying because it's girls saying, this has been such a struggle, but I finally can feel #PerfectlyMe because of the support of people, of girls around me.
I think also, you know, and we're doing this with UN Women. We started a campaign called #SeeHer. If you can see her, you can be her. So the importance of visibility, even with the 7 female co-chairs, it's inspiring, it's aspirational. It gives us hope that we can be whoever we want to be. Media plays such an important role in shaping culture. And so the #SeeHer is all about the accurate and realistic portrayal of girls and women in media and entertainment. And we're joining with UN Women to launch the Unstereotype Alliance to make that go global.
Fantastic. There's also a story that got told earlier in the lounge this morning, which is such a good example, I think, of how you kind of can take advantage of this moment in time and make disruptive change. The fact that the Today Show right now has 2 female co-hosts, a female EP and female producers, Linda Yaccarino, who is a quality lounge, girls lounge, you know, chief, I would say, chief PAC member. She said the ratings are spiking.
I love this idea of equality by design. I'm kind of playing with that in my head.
I love that.
It's equality by design. If you want equality, make that a choice.
Do it.
It's a choice, equality by design.
And look how it's paying off there.
So I know you have programming to get back to. I'll close by saying, as a journalist covering this path toward achieving the SDGs, I think what we really need is a solutions journalism approach. You talked earlier about we can't just focus on the problem. So I love to focus on people who are responding to problems. Each of you are responding to this problem of gender equality in 2 really powerful ways and joining forces. So I look forward to continuing what you do.
Thank
to
you.
follow what you do.
We always do it together.
Yes, we do.
Love it. Let's end with a high five.
Can I throw one more thing in?
If you have the time, I think we can do one more thing.
One of the things we focus on at Cosmo is kind of giving service, not just talking about the issues, but saying in the moment, how do you actually handle it if you are being mansplained to, if you're being man-interrupted, if you feel like you're not making enough money, if you're having a hard time talking. We did a whole program around taboo topics where the female Quotient did research for us about what makes things hard for women to talk about. And then we talked to women who are great at this, like Shelley and others, and said, you know, how can you push through and have hard conversations? And that's the only way it's going to change. You have to give tools so women can take them and make their own success.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great call to action.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And we always like to end with a call to action. Well, thanks again to GSMA, to the UN Foundation for convening these important conversations, and thank you to both of you.
Thank you so much.
Girl power.